Ladies and gentlemen, Charter Trustees, could you kindly be upstanding for His Worshipful the Mayor of Poole, Councillor Mark Howell.
Need glasses these days. I would like to welcome Charter Trustees, the press and members of the public to this meeting of the Poole Charter Trustees. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone follow these ground rules for speaking. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand physically to indicate and wait to be called by the chair. When called to speak, please wait for the microphone. Where there appears to be consensus for a motion, I will ask if there is any dissension. When a formal vote is required, this will be carried out by a show of hands. Charter Trustees are advised that this meeting is being recorded and will be available for live and on-demand viewing via the Council's YouTube page. Before we start the business of the agenda, as you know, the Charter Trustees is a non-political body with the primary objective being to maintain and promote the historic and ceremonial traditions of Poole. I'm keen that we all work together to maintain this objective. Agenda item 1. Could the clerk please confirm any apologies for absence received from trustees?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and apologies from your honorary clerk who's running late, stuck in traffic. But we've had apologies have been received from the following Charter Trustees: Councillor Sue Aikenhead, Councillor Julie Bagwell, Councillor Richard Burton, Councillor Judes Butt, Councillor John Challoner, Councillor Joe Clements, Councillor Emily Harman, Councillor Dawn Logan, and Councillor Andy Hadley.
Yeah, are there any more? Councillor Lepadovan?
Yes, Claire Waite.
Sorry, Councillor Bevan, sorry, can you just wait for the microphone? Thank you. It's not recording.
Yes, from Councillor Claire Waite, Councillor Matt Gillett and Councillor Oliver Walters. I've had on WhatsApp.
Thank you. Is that all? Moving on to agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Clerk, can you please report on any declarations of interest received?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, at the moment, we've had no declarations of interest to receive. Thank you.
Agenda item 3. We will now take agenda item 3 on the minutes of the previous meeting held on 25th of June 2025. Are those agreed as a true record? Do we have Councillor Trent?
Just one quickie. I was about to email that it was missing from the list, but I turned up at 10 past, but it wasn't listed on the top. So wouldn't it be easier to actually list from 6:10 or whatever on the top row? Because, as I say, I was very close to saying, oh, I missed off of that one. And I thought I was 5 minutes late, but I was 10 minutes late. But perhaps it needs to be on the top row.
Well, so, clearly we need to record if a councillor is here.
Yeah, but it needs to be sort of maybe to be the practice.
Trustee.
Regularly, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Trent. Councillor Lepadovan, did you have something to say?
I was voting to say I agree with it.
Okay, all right. It seems we're all agreed. It is my sad duty to announce the passing of Dame Annette Brooke, who was former Mayor of Poole. I attended her memorial service with the Sheriff last week, I think it was the week before, and that was at Wimborne Minster, and it was a really good send-off for her. I think it really set out or the work that she'd done over the years, and there's some people that spoke there, a couple of MPs or former MPs, including. She was the Sheriff of Poole in 1996 and Mayor in 1997. So I'd ask you to please be upstanding for a moment of reflection. Thank you. You may be seated. Right, I'll now deliver my update. So since our last meeting, I've attended 47 events. If I can just open my computer. And I will talk about a few of them. The Sheriff and I visited Dorset Archives, which was a very interesting afternoon. The Archives got out all the Poole charters for us to look at, and I very much recommend, if you get the opportunity, going over there and seeing them. I mean, it is really remarkable that we, have these charters, including the original one from 1248. So that is a really special thing for Poole. I visited the Chestnut Nursery. Now, a lot of you will buy your plants, hopefully, from the nursery, but it really struck me going to their anniversary that what a well-run organisation that is, really well supported by trustees who are trying to make a difference there. And actually, I think acting as a model for other organisations and helping other organisations out. So, well done to them. I attended the Roma Holocaust Memorial Service, again in Wimborne Minster, and that was quite heartrending and, valuable to remind people of the gypsies and travellers that suffered and were murdered in the war. I have visited a couple of organisations in the north of the town. We'd certainly like to see more invitations from the north, but we visited the Camford Heath Residents Association Fete with Councillor Moore, Broadstone Horticultural Society show, which unfortunately that will be the last time presumably we visit because of the transfer to the Charter Trustees and the independent Republic of Broadstone being created. I had a wonderful afternoon out on the platform, the racing platform on the harbour. I was invited by Parkstone Yacht Club to set off a race there, and actually when a lot of you may not even notice the platform, it's a little thing that sticks up off beta, but when you're on it and there are 100 boats just circulating around it waiting to start their races, it's really quite spectacular. I attended the launch of the Poverty Truth Commission, which is a very valuable piece of work. And I think I conclude by saying that this weekend I attended the Open Gymnastics competition for disabled youngsters at Rossmore Leisure Centre. This is something I knew nothing about, and it's been going for 25 years. It's a national indeed in some ways international competition, because there are some teams that attend from abroad. There was a team from Norway and from Switzerland, I think, this year. And it's an opportunity for young disabled people who are not at the elite special sports level, but are at the more kind of lower level, feeder level, entry level, if you like. And it was just wonderful to see them enjoying, participating, and it was very special. And hopefully it will continue in Poole for many years. It was originally in London and has moved to Poole 25 years ago, partly because the organisers moved to Poole, but partly because it was just too expensive to run in London. I really would encourage you to attend that in the future if you get the opportunity. Okay, now if we move on to the next item, which is the report of the Poole Civic Working Group. We will now take this item. Could the Sheriff, Councillor Karen Rampton, please introduce the report and move any recommendations?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the report that you will no doubt have read is basically a summary of, in the main, the meeting that we held on the 6th of October at Creekmore, at Northmead House in Creekmore, which was not the best venue. We had some IT problems, so we are looking for a different venue for the next meeting, which should be on or around the 14th of November. And we had a presentation from our Director of Finance and our Head of Estates, which is attached as Appendix 1 on future accommodation needs. This is only for background reading, not intending that we have a discussion about that this evening, but you will note that there's a workshop which has been arranged for the 28th of October at 6 o'clock on Teams. I thought that would be easier for people, given that the clocks will have gone back and it's much easier to join in on Teams and have a discussion in confidential about potential to have future accommodation because of the commercial sensitivity. We then discussed the community organisation database, which has been to the Charter Trustees before, and that's been sort of drafted. Mr. Jones shared that with us at the meeting, and there are some other bits and pieces to be drawn up, and then it will be sent out to all Charter Trustees so that you can promote this within your communities. And obviously, if you feel there are any gaps, get organisations to sign up and join it. We went in June to the Mayor and myself joined officers at Bournemouth Civic Centre, and we wanted to check on the regalia. You'll know that that's been a bit of a beef of mine, that it wasn't being stored in the best way. I'd like to thank officers, sincerely thank them actually, for the way that they have now organised it, and it's so much better, and I was very satisfied that everything was being kept properly. And you will notice, if you're coming to the Remembrance Sunday, that we all have our own hat boxes now, where you can leave your belongings safely when we go to the Remembrance parades, whichever one that you choose to go to. So yes, so I was very happy that that was now being suitably looked after. We have discussed before about the mayoral and sheriff boards. We have a problem with the sheriff boards in particular because they are so big and so heavy, and it's very difficult to find someone who can engrave them and then dip them, I think is the correct term. So the suggestion has been that we create some wooden boards and we have the names sign written onto those boards. So we can then update the boards for posterity with the past sheriffs, and of course the mayoral boards will be updated. There is room on the mayoral boards for some names. I'm not sure all, so that might be a new wooden plaque created as well. And quotes are currently being sought for those. And the Sheriff's Wand, it needs restored. It's lovely, but it is looking a little bit tired. So we are going to have that sort of re-bronzed, I suppose, but it's still going to look old. It's not. Nobody knows how old it is, but it looks old, and we don't want it to look shiny and glittery. We just want it to look as it would have been when it was first made. I was just going to mention furniture, because I think we mentioned before about having furniture. I think that will be part of the discussion that we have about future accommodation needs. So there's really no point going into that at this stage until we've had that discussion on the 28th of October. And subsequent to that, members Charter Trustees who would like to go along to the Poole Civic Centre to look at the accommodation that could be available are all very welcome to come along, and then we can further the discussion there. Officers have introduced a new process which adds civic events to your diaries, and hopefully you'll see that that's been added for remembrance events, and also to allow for ward councillors, if something's happening in your ward, you should be invited to attend events alongside the mayor, as long as it's not an election period, obviously. And then the last item really was the community governance review, and obviously we've had the meeting on the 14th of October. We know the outcome of that, and so we are going to have an update later in the agenda from Mr Jones on the community governance review. I think that's all, Mr Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anybody like to speak on this item? Councillor Trent.
Yeah, I just really wanted to make a comment that when it comes to the workshop, it's a pity that it's on Teams, because I really feel that workshops work better if there's an element of one-to-one. And Teams, you never quite know how it gets sort of spread around or whatever. I think one-to-one, you can have a much more constructive discussion, and it's less inhibited. And that's just a personal feeling, but I do feel that a one-to-one is better than a Teams for something like a workshop, because, you know, people need to bounce ideas around, and once you introduce the formality of a Teams thing, it kind of starts to undermine its fluidity. That's just an opinion, but I thought I would share that.
Yes, I hadn't noticed that the clerk has appeared next to me. So I'd like to welcome our new clerk, Aidan Dunn. And I think I might ask him a question that's been already raised several times. The fact that we don't in Poole have anywhere a room that is kitted out so that we can have physical and online meetings in the same room. That communication system, which we fought a long time for to be put into the library, about a month before the library was then ruled out of action. It's just not. It's difficult for Poole Charter Trustees to operate as an organisation anyway without having the same facilities that the Bournemouth Trustees have, particularly a parlour, etc. To not have somewhere in Poole where we can have a meeting where we're plugged in and can have the kind of meeting that Tony has described is just, can we sort that out?
Reply. Good evening, everybody. I do apologise for being late. So I'm Aidan Dunn. It's a conversation that was certainly alive to in particular. I first of all recognise the comments. The power of an in-person meeting is really important, and as ever, it's a matter of finding a venue and the logistics. So I'll certainly take that away. I recognise it as an important point.
Because typically when we do have working group meetings, we're often very close to the quorum level, about 4 people. There's 10 people on the committee, I think. So, we really do need to operate both physically with the addition of you know, the online presence as well. Would anybody, Councillor Rampton?
Just in answer to Councillor Trent's, I do understand that, and we did have a discussion about how it would be best to hold the meeting. That was certainly one of the issues, that we don't have the accommodation in Poole, and I'm resisting always going to the Bournemouth Civic Centre, because I do feel that our meetings should be in Poole. But I also felt that having it online did enable more people to attend, especially, as I say, when it's an evening meeting and the nights are drawing in. So I'm hoping that we will get a really good attendance, and that the meeting won't be curtailed. People will be able to have their say, and we can have a good long discussion and debate about it. Thank you.
Councillor Cooper?
This may sound a kind of naive suggestion, but in terms of a place to meet, what about Hamworthy Library? The community have kind of been priced out from using it, the hourly rate. So we have a state-of-the-art room with, you know, DVD screens that drops down, you know, really good, what's the word I'm looking for? Resource that is just left. It's empty most of the time, so it would be really good and help Hamworthy, because it's, you know, we're looking at the library strategy and how that library can be used as a community hub, and I can see no reason why we couldn't have a contract with the library annually which says we will pay the library so much to meet, and then just go with it. So it's just a suggestion. And just to jump the gun a bit, I did want to say something about Annette. I haven't had a chance to say about Annette. And I did want to say that in my early days as a youth worker, when the Borough of Poole was the first authority to vote in a member of Youth Parliament, and you know where it's gone since then, Annette was a complete ally. When it came to young people, her heart was in the right place. There are some people sat in this room that saw that. She used to come to Youth Forum meetings. She came to the Member of Youth Parliament meetings when we were holding the elections in the old Civic Centre. And I haven't had the chance to thank her, and also to pass on Peter Reed's thank you. You know Peter. Him and Annette were very close, but he couldn't make it to the ceremony. So I'm sorry to jump, but I felt I needed to say that, because she was a grand lass, despite being a Liberal Democrat.
Thank you for your fine words, Councillor Cooper, in more than one respect. Does anybody else wish to speak on this item? Councillor Brown?
Just wanted to quickly pick up the point about a meeting space. I don't know what the opening hours of the Foundry in the Dolphin Centre is, but they've got meeting rooms with screens and stuff in there. So just a suggestion, and I was just looking at £25 an hour for a meeting room, so I'm sure that's affordable within the budget.
I think the issue is that, you know, can we get the council system hooked up to the TV, the screen, the big screen, in whatever room that we hire? So, yeah, that's another good option. Councillor Earl?
Thank you. I can't remember if we're standing. No. I just wanted to ask, obviously, I've been hearing the phrase wand gilding for a little while. I don't know what that means, but I did want to ask, is it something that is around kind of the security and the longevity of the wand, or is it purely cosmetic? I'm just a bit concerned about, like, the optics of gilding and that kind of thing, because when I read it I was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure what that means.
Councillor Ramsden.
Thank you. We haven't got it here, so I can't demonstrate. Oh, we have got it here. Hang on.
It's the big one.
You won't be able to take it off.
The wand. The wand is right. Honestly, it's clamped on, so I can't take it off. If you will look at here, Councillor L, you will see that it's kind of got a bit...
It's gone beyond shabby chic.
It's yes, that's the right way of putting it. So the idea is not to sort of make it bright yellow and loads of gold on it. It's to bring it back to how it would have been, and the same goes for the bit down here. And then you've got the wee crown on the top, and that just needs to be a little bit. So it's not going to be a huge... Yeah, it's going to fall now. Sorry, Warren.
And I think
it's not going to be a hugely expensive job, I wouldn't anticipate, but it will. But when I went to the sheriff's weekend, I wasn't ashamed of it. I was very proud of it, but I did recognise that we did look a bit. Our chains were the best chains, but our wand was not the best wand.
Councillor Hampson, I think you did say that you were going to go for a not a shiny gold, but a more. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Does anybody else want to contribute? Yes, Councillor Moore.
Sorry about that. I dropped the mouse. I was just going to ask, did you get quotes for it? What sort of price range? I know you said it's not going to be very expensive, but what sort of price range is not very expensive? That was all. Just for interest.
Neil?
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. We are in the process of obtaining quotes for all of the updates to the regalia that Councillor Rampton mentioned. That includes the wand and the boards and so on. Those quotes will be passed to the Civic Working Group and the budget signatories for final approval and so on.
Okay, any more? Okay, thank you, Councillor Rampson. Your points are noted. Your report is noted. Finance update, which is item number 6 on the agenda. Mr. Fulmer, would you like to introduce your report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Charter Trustees. So this is a finance update for the end of September, so halfway through the year. We're forecasting underspend of just over £24,000. Appendix A to the report sets out all the detailed agreed budgets for 25-26 alongside the forecast for year end. You'll see there's a number of lines that we're not expecting to spend at all or below what we originally expected, namely around hospitality, rooms and premises costs and communication and promotion. So this underspend means that rather than draw down the £25,000 from reserves to support the budget, we're planning to forecasting to draw down £1,000, which will leave the forecasted reserve balance at the end of the year at just over £89,000. I just wanted to take this opportunity as well just to update Charter Trustees that the annual governance and accountability return that we signed off in June, which is basically our accounts, has been externally audited and got a clean bill of health. So they'll be on the Charter Trustees website shortly. So I'll stop there, Mr. Mayor. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you. So we don't need to have a vote on that, do we? Because there's nothing to vote on. Okay. Let's move on. Item 7. This is Community Governance Review. Mr. Jones, would you like to provide your update, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is a verbal update, so I'm happy to take any questions or items, but it's clearly early days following the council decision last week to establish the new town councils of Broadstone, Poole and Bournemouth. So really just to give you an update in terms of where we are, what we're doing. The Charter Trustees will be abolished on the 31st of March 2026 through this process, and the new councils are officially established on the 1st of April 2026. We are in the process of a number of work streams. They are running concurrently in many instances, but I'll give you an overview of some of those key activities that are underway and that we are planning to move forward with. So in terms of legal and governance issues, the primary focus there is around the drafting and submission of the reorganisation orders. So they're similar to when BCP was established and we had the structural changes order. These are for parish and town councils, and they cover much of the same issues around the formal details of the structure and makeup of the new councils. Those all relate to the decisions you made in terms of the boundary, the warding, numbers of councillors, etc. That will include the orders, and there may be a number of orders for each area. So there are some core core elements that go into the first order, and then there may be supplementary orders that follow. So some of those other issues will be the transitional arrangements to provide continuity between the existing arrangements for mayoralty and the Charter Trustees and the new council, and that continuity needs to go through until the election of the new council. So in that regard, there's a transition that normally is that during the period of the 1st of April and the election date, that the ward councillors that represent the wards that cover the area of the new town council will effectively be town councillors for that short duration. That doesn't really mean that they will do a tremendous amount of work, but it's there in case there is an emergency that has to take place during that period. Of course, there will be elections as well in that same period. I'm working with the elections team in terms of preparing for those, and the pre-election period is likely to start on the 30th of March. So that's the same as that transition period. So that's the date the notice of election needs to be published. The reorganisation order will also cover issues around the transfer of assets. So we're working, clearly we've got a very detailed asset register. That asset register was established prior to 2019 to transfer the assets to the Charter Trustees. A similar process will occur for the transfer of assets to Poole Town Council. Potentially Broadstone as well, if there's any assets that are branded Broadstone, for instance, there may be some items that are transferred to Broadstone. And the reorganisation order will also look at and provide the detail on the anticipated budget for year one. So it's the responsibility of the billing authority, that is BCP, to set the anticipated amount for the first year. The Task and Finish group will be working on that to develop that, and that will come back to council in due course for approval. We're also working, or we haven't started this piece yet, but we will be contacting the College of Arms for the formal transfer of the historic and royal charters and the unmoral bearings, or the coat of arms, to transfer from the Charter Trustees to the Town Council. So that work will be undertaken. And then the other work streams feed into some of those reorganisation orders around the finance and taxation. So we need to calculate the tax base, the revised tax bases for Poole. Obviously, you are losing a large chunk for Broadstone. You're gaining some from Bournemouth. You're equally losing a small area to Bournemouth. So it's not a quick process. The Council Tax Department have the properties that are transferring to the respective areas to undertake that council tax base calculation. The assets I've already covered. We will need to look at staffing for the new council, perhaps interim arrangements. I haven't got answers for all of these yet, so I'm just raising the work streams that are in that will take place. We will need to have an interim clerk at the very least, and that clerk may be the responsible finance officer. Elections, we're already in the conversations around that for the 7th of May elections. We will prepare induction packs for prospective candidates. Mapping work is being undertaken. In fact, I had the Sheriff earlier on ask me about the mapping. The GIS team are doing the detailed map that needs to be submitted to Ordnance Survey for the new parish areas. And we will carry out some of the registration requirements for HMRC, the ICO for the Information Commissioner's Office, and potentially other regulators that we might need to contact. So that's a very quick overview as to the work that's being done. As I said, it is working concurrently. I will be drawing on various teams throughout the council to gain information. I'm sure I'll be contacting Matt Filmer in due course.
Thank you, Mr. James. Would anybody like to speak on this item? Councillor Andrews.
Thank you very much. In terms of obviously the assets, you've got the physical assets, the spoons included. One of the assets which is not physical is the registration number, APR1. And I flagged that up as something which I think was given to the Borough of Poole, given to the Mayor of the Poole in the 1920s. And because it's not a physical object, it got shifted slightly sideways into BCP's caretakership, I would classify it. And I would certainly like that asset to go to the new town council, please.
Yes.
It's certainly something we can take away and have a conversation with. We need to discuss that. It has been mentioned already, and clearly Bournemouth have got their corresponding EO1. Clearly the transfer of assets to the Charter Trustee was limited to civic and ceremonial historical assets. So a number plate doesn't really fall into that category, hence it went to BCP, but it's something we need to have a proper conversation with, but I can't provide you with the answer at this stage.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think that has been raised several times by different councillors with me, so it is something that is considered to be important. Councillor Rampton?
I would just like to know where that number plate is. I haven't seen it in years. Is it being stored in the safe at Bournemouth Civic Centre, or is it on somebody's car somewhere?
I think what is important is that it was actually transferred to BCP from the borough of Poole, you know.
Just to clarify, there is a process. Forgive me, I don't know where the actual plate is, but they're to a penny in terms of getting them reprinted. But the number plate is registered and it is secured. So when you take a registration plate off a car, there's a process to follow to secure that. That is secure. It is held. But obviously the car that it was on became economically unviable to repair, so we had to end that car and cease the use. But the number plate registration, I can guarantee, is secure and is held by the council.
Thank you. Councillor Trent?
Probably a cheeky question, but does Poole get the Audi?
Do you want an answer to that?
It's an interesting one because the Audi was previously Christchurch's, so I don't think you necessarily want to go there. But it is an issue I think we need to take through the Task and Finish Group. As I said, the Task and Finish Group is looking at the costs, a number of other issues. Personally, I think there is a conversation to be had, and there may be the need to establish a shadow council. I should say that maybe in the new year, so we can have some of those debates around some of the more detailed issues. I think it is for the new town council, though, to decide what it wishes to do in the future, and I think we need to be careful not to commit the town council to issues. So my suggestion would be, and again, it's only my thoughts, is that you continue with the existing arrangements of perhaps using the resources from BCP on various issues. I've mentioned allotments must be transferred, so again, do you really want to be managing allotments on day one, or would you use the resources of BCP for that purpose until the town council is established and ready to know what it wishes to do with those facilities? So I think there's a transitional arrangement to be had in terms of taking on various things, including potentially cars.
So I believe when Christchurch Town Council was created, it was gifted by BCP the council building that it operates from. Is that correct? And if that is the case, perhaps this building should be gifted to the Poole to the Poole Town Council in order to get it up and running.
Probably above my pay grade, that one, Mr. Mayor, in truth. I mean, I think if we go back to LGR, clearly there were other issues around the time for Christchurch and the transfer of particular assets. That did transfer, but it was a bit of a liability as well. So I think it was a peppercorn payment, I think, in truth.
Councillor Earl?
I think we need to be, I know that question was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I do think, speaking with my Charter Trustee hat on rather than my BCP Council hat on, it could be quite premature to start committing the future Poole Town Council, which I'm delighted about, items that they are not set up to take on just yet. So I think these things are absolutely up for discussion in the longer term, but not in the short term.
Anybody else? I'd like to raise one event that I've been thinking about and trying to get a view as to whether it's possible to deliver. and I think it is possible to deliver, which is the beating of the bounds, land bounds. I think it's appropriate given that the border of Poole is essentially changing because Broadstone is moving out. Then we have a beating of the bounds event in early May, which would then allow us to mark those bounds. I would propose that I would cycle around it, that other people can visit various points along the way, and we could maybe have some kind of short ceremony on the border with Broadstone, and essentially make it come back to the quay and have a community event, get all the local volunteer organisations that are looking for volunteers to have stores on the quay, advertise it, and get it, basically kick-starting the new town council with an event that people can enjoy, but that is also useful. I just wonder if there are any comments on that.
I think as long as it's after polling day, yeah, sounds like a really good idea.
So we have discussed this about whether it needs to be after. It doesn't need to be after polling day, but my preference is that it would be after polling day, because then the town councillors can be at it as well. So that would be one of the 2 weekends immediately following the bank holiday, the first bank holiday. There's some work that Richard needs to do, try and understand how we facilitate the extension of the mayoral period and how it joins up with the new mayor, given the various. Basically, I think you've got to write it down, and nobody will really notice what he writes down, so it will probably go through. So, but yeah, no, obviously Richard does a great job in trying to understand the complexities of town councils and changing from one authority to another, and hopefully we'll get to the bottom of how to do that. Any other comments? Councillor Hitchcock?
The beating of the bounds, have you got water wings on your bike then?
So the beating of the bounds historically has, it's operated mainly the water beating of the bounds, but there have been examples in the past where the inland bounds have been beaten, and that's what the proposal is this time. It wouldn't be water-based, although there might be an opportunity to encounter pirates along the way, perhaps on Holes Bay or somewhere like that.
Another question with the town council, will we get revenue from car parks and the beach huts, particularly in Hamworthy Park?
I would think not, because those assets wouldn't be transferred, but I'll ask Mr. James to respond.
Again, the intention of the transfer of assets is, in accordance with the decision, is along the statutory required assets, which are allotments. The allotments must be transferred as ownership, and the civic and ceremonial regalia to transfer over. There is no intention to transfer any other assets at this time. I think that again is a decision in the future for the future town councils to have conversations around services and functions, but there is no intention at this point to transfer those income generating assets.
So would we get the revenue from it, even if we don't get the asset?
No.
Why not? It's on our patch.
If the town council requested to take on running any given asset.
Yeah, sorry. I think my understanding of the process is that there will be an initial phase where the shadow council will decide on what assets are transferred, and then after that, as Christchurch Council did, it can enter into negotiations, the town council with BCP Council, to purchase assets if BCP is amenable to that. So it's, if you want something to come over for free, you have to start essentially, bargaining for that now, within amongst your fellow councillors.
Will that be decided by the Task and Finish Group, or thrashed out by the Task and Finish Group, and then ratified at Council? What's going on?
Mr. Jones, could you describe again the nature of the councillor involvement in the transfer?
The recommendations that went to council and have been approved was quite specific, that it involved the transfer of those statutory services that must be transferred and the civic and ceremonial assets. So no conversation has taken place in relation to other assets. It wouldn't be a matter for the Task and Finish Group to recommend the transfer of any of those assets. They are looking at the anticipated budget requirements. They may look at some other issues, the incidental issues that may come up through that process, but they're not tasked with identifying individual services and assets. Just in relation to income, though, and allotments do generate income. So probably not a huge amount, but there is, the income should go to the body that is running the service. So I think in the future, as you've mentioned, Christchurch have taken on some services. They are paying and running for those services, and therefore they reap the benefits of any income. If the town council had a future building that could generate income, then again that income would go to the town council. But you've got to take on that liability and risk in order to generate that income and take that benefit. Sorry, I should also say though that one area that we need to bottom out, and I didn't list it, apologies, was neighbourhood forums and SIL money. So there could be SIL money coming into the town councils as an income generation as well.
Mr. Jones, there might be circumstances, for example, in relation to the former civic centre, where the BCP Council needs to engage with the nascent town council. So would that be a working group of BCP Council speaking to the Charter Trustees working group? How would that interface, what would that interface look like?
Forgive me, you mentioned, I didn't quite catch exactly what you said. The Task and Finish Group hasn't met yet, so in terms of the budget requirements, I do anticipate there being engagement with the respective areas, and I don't think we can have every Charter Trustee at those meetings in terms of the timescale, but certainly something like the Civic Working Group could have some conversation around what should be in the base budget, what is anticipated going forward to help help inform that decision, and I think that applies to Poole, Bournemouth.
So my point. Let's take Councillor Trent Aldi for the point, just as an example. It's a non-core asset that there might be some discussion as to whether it should be transferred or not. Is that something that the two respective councillor bodies, one from each organisation, will discuss and come to some conclusion over? Is that something one councillor, this body, will delegate to their council officer to speak to a council officer in the other organisation? Many of these people wearing two hats. It's. I think it's complicated. I think the reason I'm pushing it is because it does. There's a couple of councillors have raised this as a potential issue, and there clearly is a grey area of some assets that might transfer or might not, depending on the mindset of the chart.
I think there's pre-vesting day and there's post-vesting day. So before vesting day, if we establish a shadow council, some of those decisions could potentially be made by a shadow council, but they would be committing the future council to obligations. And I'll use the car as an example. So the value of the car is not probably significantly high. It's not new. It's probably getting on a few years. But what comes with the car is storage, cleaning, maintenance, insurance, tax, all those other issues that come with owning a car. And I think that's the decision of the new town council to make as to whether or not they wish in the longer term to operate in the way that you do as Charter Trustees, with a chauffeur and a chauffeur-driven car, or whether not to have a chauffeur-driven car and self-drive. Christchurch took the decision they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to have the liabilities of having to locate a garage for storage and everything else, and they chose that decision ahead of 2019, and they haven't changed that view. Hence, the vehicle transferred over to BCP. So I think it's probably a decision really for the new town council once established. What does it wish to do for its mayoralty and the civic role that you currently enjoy as Charter Trustees?
Okay, thank you.
Can I just... But I guess your point, Mayor, is if that decision is not going to be taken till later, is there the concern about what happens to the vehicle now?
Yeah, so I don't want to get hung up on the vehicle,
No,
that it could be any asset. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I just clearly... Yeah, I mean, there's an issue about whether we as... Well, if we imagine that ourselves here, when in our councillor roles, you know, want certain assets to agree whether certain assets will transfer to the new town council, to us in our temporary roles as Poole town councillors. You know, it was just a question of, you know, how those kind of discussions are going to happen, in what forum, and yeah, Councillor Earl.
Thank you. So just, I agree, it does feel a bit of a mind, problem when you're like, I'm a Charter Trustee, but also a BCP councillor and so on. But what I'm thinking is that we need to, with our BCP council hats on, ensure that our budget reflects any liabilities that could potentially then go over to the Poole Town Council, so that they are empowered and have the ownership and the decision-making power from there. I'm just thinking, for example, the car, the last thing that we want is for that, not physically, but budget-wise, to come out of our budget and then not have anywhere to go, no firm decisions on that. So I think that the working group, that it's going to be their job to decide to make provisions and make sure that there isn't any asset or individual thing or service that we all expect to continue but then doesn't, and therefore, places Poole Town Council on a very difficult trajectory because they're starting from a more difficult position.
Does anybody else want to make any comments? Councillor Wright?
I think with all the any of the assets, we need the working group, whoever decides, needs to have a bunch of things that are definitely going to go to the new town council, and then another whole raft of things that possibly might go to the town council. And then once the town council is elected, then you can have conversations about the other half of the gear that they want. And then that's a negotiation between the new town council and BCP. Otherwise, we could be inflicting things on a baby tech council that they just don't want.
Councillor Cooper?
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't hear very well, so maybe I might, in my naivety, because it's new ground for me, my assumption was, we're going to a Poole Town Council, there'll be a holding group, but the responsibility for determining the future will be to the elected councillors that come in. So in terms of the decisions that are made, I don't think they should be of any substance or of any concrete notion, because there are examples around the country of councillors coming in and saying, that's a load of rubbish, we're not going to do that. And I think what we need to do is design out that, and design in cohesion, design in harmony, and future proofing, that a new load of guys and lasses or people will come in and they'll say, okay, this is cool. We now work with everyone to work the way forward. That's my view anyway.
Yeah, Mr. Jones?
Again, maybe worth just clarifying. So BCP is required to set what is referred to as the anticipated amount, which is what we believe they may require for a budget. And I think it's important to build it. I think what I'm hearing really is that it's important that we build in sufficient headroom in that budget to allow the town council to make some decisions that it wishes to take. It doesn't have to take those decisions. It's just providing them with the ability to do that. What is required is that we set the anticipated budget, and the new town councils must, I think it's by the 1st of October, I keep on meaning to look this date up, but I'm sure it's the 1st of October, must set the actual budget for their first year. So we will identify a sum of money. They will then go through and meet as a town council and decide on their priorities and decide how they wish to spend or use that money. They don't have to spend up to that anticipated amount, but anything they don't spend realistically will go into reserves. So they can use that in future years for any particular project. So I think all I want to say is that I think it's important that we do build in that headroom to allow the new town councils to make some decisions that they want to, and we don't hamstring them by setting a budget that is too low to allow them to make those options.
And presumably, because we would be appointing a clerk, admittedly maybe a temporary clerk, the clerk would have some input as to what was needed as a kind of set-up status for the council.
Yeah, again, obviously the new organisation doesn't start until the 1st of April, so technically an interim clerk is from the 1st of April. We will do what we can to assist in preparations for various things, in ensuring that they can work on day one, whoever they are. But we do need to have an interim clerk, and I think it is probably right that it is interim, because it is for the new clerk and new council to determine its future staffing requirements for themselves. So an interim for a fixed term would be appropriate. But again, it's important that they are qualified and experienced.
Thank you. Does anybody else? Councillor Wright?
What access will a new clerk have to BCP's, any information from BCP? For example, you're not going to be able to set a budget unless you know how many properties band A, how many properties band B, all the council tax, the amount they're going to be getting in. You can't set a budget without knowing where the money's coming from, and knowing what all the different bands of the council tax payers are is the first step. So what access has any clerk or financial officer, whatever a new town council decides to employ, what access will they have?
Is that one for Mr. Jones, Mr. Fulmer? Or even the clerk?
Yeah. So the year one budget in terms of council tax, we as BCP will set. Beyond that, so I'm putting my old hat on now as the finance director of Dorset Council. Dorset had, Weymouth Town Council, etc., etc. So it's the finance team of BCP Council will advise, basically, this is, if you set your precept at X, this is how much you'll raise. So it's very much a team effort. So the finance team of BCP Council will have all the financial information and will talk to the town clerk about the implications of their budget proposals.
And that's every year?
Every year, yes, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Dawson-Gibson.
Can I just ask a really obvious question for clarification? I assume that the financial reserves of the Charter Trustees will transfer to the Town Council. There's about 90,000 sitting there, isn't there?
Who would like to take that one?
Yeah, yes, it will. It will transfer. Obviously, we need to work on the formula as how that is distributed, because Broadstone clearly has been contributing to that, towards that as well. And I think the fair process to distribute that is probably based on the tax base. So we will know what the total tax base is and divide it up by the respective areas. But yes, that reserves of the Charter Trustees will go to the town councils.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, I think that concludes that item and also concludes the meeting. So thank you for your attendance and have a good evening.